What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking last week's episode of Uncool with Alexa Bliss, as seen on WWE Network, WWE's YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms with the Bellas. They were the special guest last week on the network version. I think Ryan Cabrera was on last week, but the video version goes up this week. So I am well aware that WWE is starting to promote and add a lot of new podcasts, a video version of podcasts to the WWE Network this week. If it was one, I might consider watching it, but they're literally adding at least 4 that I know of as of right now. They're adding a Sam Roberts wrestling podcast, a different version of his audio podcast. That's coming to the network this week. Isaiah Swerve Scott and a friend of his are doing their podcast, which they've been doing for a while now. I think it's like the Swerve Basement or something like that. I forgot what it's called, but that's coming to the network as well. If not this week, then very soon. Lillian Garcia announced that her Chasing Glory podcast is coming to the WWE Network soon as well, in addition to the After the Bell podcast. And I think the New Day podcast as well. So, like, all the fucking podcasts are coming to the WWE Network, which, listen, is great. I just don't have the time or the energy to watch every single podcast and review it here for the channel. So the Alexa Bliss one I've already started. I've already enjoyed it. And I'm sure the other ones are going to be great too, if not already great. I just don't have the time or the effort to review those. So I'm going to continue with the Alexa Bliss ones. I think there's only a few episodes left anyway. So anyway, this one went up last week and featured the Bellas, obviously the longest one yet, at like 53 minutes. You can watch it on the network. You can watch it on WWE's YouTube channel. But you can also check it out in podcast form on all your favorite podcast platforms, as I said earlier. So Alexa talks to the Bellas about how it was for them growing up. And they said it was like double trouble. They were always confident because one would always have the other. They were always confident going into middle school, high school, even kindergarten, Nikki Bella said. The difference between the two, though, was that Brie was a bit more shy. She was always kind of like the kid in the corner type of person. Nikki was way more competitive. She was always competitive, always wanted to face the guys and like arm wrestling contests and stuff like that. And they talk a lot about what they used to wear. And this didn't really do a lot for me just because I'm a guy and I really don't care about what they used to wear. And it's not like I grew up in the same era as them. So they talk a lot about like their hairstyles and how Brie was drawn to Gwen Stefani. And how they used to stand out. They talk for like 5 to 10 minutes about their outfits growing up. I really don't care about that. Alexa actually said that just to be different from another Lexi in school, because she went by the name Lexi growing up. I think her actual name is Lexi, isn't it? Or maybe that's just the name that she uses anyway. She spelled her name with 2 I's instead of 1, just for the sake of being different, you know? That actually reminds me of a kid that I went to college with a couple of years ago. And his name was Matt. Not because, I'm sure there were other Matts, but he spelled his name with 1 T instead of 2. So like a bathroom mat, you know what I mean? Like a mat that you would step on, which I think is a downgrade from the normal mat, which is 2 T's. I just thought that was so stupid. That's what that reminded me of when she said that. And Brie talks about her haircuts and how bad they were and having bangs and stuff like that, whatever. So they then move on to their first kisses. Breeze, I forgot where she had hers or if she even talked about it. Nikki said she had hers in 7th grade at a mall, and like all these other kids like watched them, and then like she spit afterward, and they kind of made fun of the boy for like, she spit afterward, and she was like, I don't know why I did that, but I just did. So really weird. She also talked about liking some guy named Matt Young who worked at the mall that she was just enamored with, and they ended up going on a few dates a few years later, which is kind of funny. They talk about their childhood crushes and how innocent love used to be when they were growing up. Nikki says that she still has all of her school notes that she used to pass in school, which, listen, I keep a lot of stuff too. Why would you hold on to that stuff? I have no idea. That seems a little weird to me. They also talk about their first high school dates. Their first real dates were in high school. And Nikki said that she didn't really go on a date until going on a MySpace date in college. And MySpace is quite the flashback. If I was never on MySpace, I was kind of more Facebook growing up. I miss that era. Not like I miss it as I want it back. Like I wasn't around for that era is what I mean. So I guess a MySpace date is you meet someone on MySpace, you meet up in real life, and of course, as she says, the person looked absolutely nothing like their picture, which I guess is the equivalent to Tinder today. Another thing I don't use, or I've never used, but I guess that would kind of be the same thing. Alexa talks about she used to be terrified of boys growing up, like her parents had her very young, which is pretty evident if you've seen her parents. Her parents are like, they're definitely not in their 30s now, but like they were in their 30s a couple of years ago. Her mom is so young that she looks like she could be Alexa Bliss's sister. That's how young her parents are. They probably had her at like 18, 19 or something like that. And they told her like they didn't want the same thing to happen to her that what happened to them and having a kid so young. So they used to tell her sex is bad, it could kill you, all this other stuff. So she was really scared of boys growing up, which I thought was funny. The Bellas talk about getting their first tattoos, a pair of fairy tattoos, which is so stupid. At the age of 15, and they even said as much as well. They thought they were cool. They talk about the process and getting the fairies. I don't know if it was both of them, but they both got their first tattoos around that age. And Brie just had hers removed recently because it was so fucking stupid. Like, it was right on her ass, too, she said, which is even worse. Which, obviously, not a lot of people can see it, but when someone does see your ass, it's kind of embarrassing. So, anyway, they talk about going to the high school football and basketball games, which brought back PTSD for me because I always fucking hated those. Which, this comes as no surprise. Nikki absolutely loved high school. And listen, it's great to like your high school experience, but she strikes me as someone who would live in her high school, in her high school glory days, so to speak. That does not surprise me at all. Brie doesn't say that she misses high school. Maybe she does, but she didn't outright say, oh, I loved high school, it was so fun. Nikki Bella seems like a person that would miss high school. So they used to hang out with different people. They kind of got separated, by high school. They kind of went in different friend groups, kind of did their own thing as opposed to being together constantly growing up as twins. They eventually shared a car. Nikki shared a story about how she almost crashed the car with her brother the first day they got it. She was on two wheels at one point, which is kind of scary. So thankfully it was okay. Brie doesn't, I guess, miss high school as much as she misses the 90s, which is why she did her gear the way that she did. Nikki's gear was very jock-oriented, which again comes as no surprise. Brie's was like the flannel, the ripped pants. It was supposed to emanate the 90s, which makes sense. Kind of emulate the 90s, not emulate the 90s, which makes sense. They loved the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, among other bands. Nikki loved Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who I guess is the founder of the group, if I'm not mistaken. She went to a book signing for him. She went backstage for one of their concerts. How that came to be, I don't know. Maybe they said and I missed it. But they were backstage for one of the Red Hot Chili Pepper concerts. And Anthony Kiedis, I guess sweat on Nikki Bella, which she died from, which she absolutely loved. They went to a Slash concert with Jericho one time while they were working with WWE. And I forgot who they said they wanted to meet. But maybe it was Kiedis. I think it was someone else. It was definitely someone else. And they had to leave because a friend was in town and the band took too long. And as soon as they left, that's when the bandmates showed up. And Nikki was like, oh yeah, I loved him so much, I definitely would have put out for him because I was single at the time, which I didn't exactly need to hear, but that's Nikki Bella for you. She also absolutely loved Brad Pitt as a guy who I guess never had an awkward phase in their opinion, in addition to Leonardo DiCaprio and Channing Tatum, people like that. They say they grew up in a good era of music, which is true. I wasn't around for that era, but the 80s and 90s, amazing music. I would say 80s more than 90s, but the 90s were great for music too. I would absolutely argue that, and I wasn't even born at that point. I was born in 95, but I didn't grow up in that era, if that makes sense. I was more early 2000s. Speaking of music, they discuss going to they discuss going to concerts rather and having their first jobs. They talk about doing professional modeling in college, which was interesting. They also talked a lot about Hooters and how they were Hooters. I think Nikki was, maybe not Brie, but Nikki was a Hooters girl for 2.5 years. And Nikki at one point had her ass slapped. They were kind of degraded. And this one, Hooters is a different place now than it was 25 years ago. But that's kind of how it was at that point. I guess Alexa, she wanted to work at Hooters, but just because of how small she was, it didn't exactly work out. But she did wear Hooters tights in the ring, which I guess is what she wears now, or she used to wear. She used to go get the tights from Hooters, which I thought was interesting. And she got offended one time in going there to buy the tights because the girl that worked there, a teenage girl, called her ma'am. And they have a whole conversation about being old and what people think of them now being 20. They're not 20, but Alexa Bliss might be in her late 20s. I'm pretty sure she's in her early 30s. I mean, yeah, she might be in her late 20s. The Bellas are definitely like in their mid to late 30s. So Brie's like, oh, I wonder what people think of us now. Is like, do they think of us like moms or whatever? And Nikki's like, no. Like, they definitely think of me as like the hot girl next door, blah, 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 which is weird. They talk about boobs a lot and having boobs as teens. And Alexa Bliss has told this story before about how she had implants at the age of 17, not just for any random reason. I know it sounds weird, but it was because she had an eating disorder. So it kind of helped her cope with that. And she talked about having, how guys would fawn all over the boobs and stuff like that. So they talk a lot about boobs, and Alexa even says that she wishes that she didn't have the procedure done in high school as opposed to maybe later on in her life. And they talk about all that type of stuff. And they say that both Brie and Nikki say that they would tell their younger selves to just be exactly who they are growing up. And that's the note they ended on. So I thought it was a good podcast. It was really long. They talked about some stuff I just don't really care about. That's why I thought this was probably, in my opinion, the weakest one yet. It's probably why I didn't love this episode as much. It was good. And I like the Bellas, but I don't know. I thought the James Eigelhart episode was better. The Miz one was great. Even the Lance Bass episode I really, really enjoyed, and I'm sure the Ryan Cabrera one is also going to be great just because they're dating, so having her boyfriend on the show I'm sure is going to be amazing. So anyway, this was good. I wouldn't recommend it for 53 minutes. Maybe if you're driving in the car and you're a big Bella Twins fan, but I just thought this was kind of forgettable. They told some good stories, but I don't know, just the way that they come across sometimes I'm not a big fan of, so it is what it is. Just a decent episode, but not the best yet. Probably the weakest in my opinion. So be sure to check out all my other Uncool with Alexa Bliss podcast episode reviews right here on the WWE Network and Chill show, here on the channel, in the description box down below, in the playlist entitled Uncool with Alexa Bliss reviews. So check that out. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe for more daily content. We have 1 to 2 videos going up every single day. Today, we just uploaded the latest installment of the MCU Rewatch Reviews with myself, my old college roommate Connor O'Keefe, and the Doc Chris Mueller talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. So be sure to check that out. We got another Network and Chill, 2 Network and Chill videos going up tomorrow. Very likely the WWE The Day Of Clash of Champions 2020 edition of WWE The Day Of, as I just mentioned. So that's probably going up tomorrow, as well as my review of Raw Talk. I still have yet to watch the 24 on McIntyre. I'm probably going to watch it later. That review should be up on Wednesday. Thursday, WrestleRant Radio excerpts. Friday, we're going to have the Uncool with Alexa Bliss Ryan Cabrera episode review, probably up. Saturday, SmackDown review, also on Saturday, Talking Smack review from that same day. And on Sunday will be the review of the Chronicle with Bayley. That's airing on Saturday. And next Monday, in addition to Phase 3 recap of the MCU Rewatch Review Series, I'm also going to be putting up my review of the Untold episode featuring the Phenom and the Legend Killer themselves, Randy Orton and The Undertaker. So a lot to look forward to here on the channel. All the more reason to subscribe and hit that little bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. Have a great one, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.